My wife told her sister I was basically unemployed. I own the building where her sister works. I heard it from 6 feet away, over the hiss of the espresso machine and the forced bright chatter of a grand reopening that smelled like fresh paint and cinnamon syrup. My wife, Mara, was standing with her arm looped through her sister's, smiling like she was posing for a photo, and she said, clear as day, yeah, he's basically unemployed. He just does little things on his laptop and calls it work. Her sister, Tessa, made this sympathetic face like I'd been diagnosed with something embarrassing, and then she laughed and added, men, I swear. My body reacted before my brain did. My ears went hot. My stomach tightened like I'd missed a step. I was holding a paper cup of coffee that suddenly felt too light, like it might float out of my hand. I stood there frozen in the entryway of Tessa's studio, her new wellness boutique, all white walls and plants and neon cursive signs. Watching my wife nod along while she casually dismantled me in front of people who were literally wearing name tags. Mara didn't see me at first. She was facing Tessa and a couple of women in matching beige blazers, and she had that practice laugh she uses when she wants people to like her. Tessa squeezed her arm and said, honestly, I don't know how you do it. Carrying everything. And Mara sighed, like martyrdom was a hobby. My throat went dry. I took one step forward, and my shoe squeaked on the polished concrete. Mara's head snapped toward me. For a split second, half a heartbeat, her face did something weird. Not guilt exactly. More like surprise that I existed in the same room as the story she'd been telling. Then she pasted on a smile. Oh, babe, she chirped, loud enough for everyone to hear. You made it. I didn't trust my voice, so I lifted my coffee slightly like a toast and nodded. My jaw felt tight, like my teeth didn't fit together right. Tessa turned fully toward me, eyes flicking down on my shoes, then back up to my face, and she gave me that look I'd seen before, half pity, half judgment, like I was a dog someone didn't train properly. Hey, she said, didn't think you'd get away from your busy schedule. The women in beige blazers smirked like that was hilarious. Mara stepped closer, her hand sliding onto my arm. It looked affectionate to anyone watching. It felt like a clamp. Her nails pressed through my shirt like a reminder. Behave. We're just talking, she murmured, low enough that only I could hear. Don't make it weird. Weird. Like I was the one who'd just called my spouse basically unemployed in public. It was a Thursday evening, and I was only there because Mara actually begged for me to show up. It's important to Tessa, she'd said while applying mascara in our bathroom mirror, leaning in so close she fogged the glass. It would mean a lot if you came and supported her. Please don't be antisocial tonight. She'd said it like my absence would be an insult, like I was some sulking teenager refusing family events. I told her I had work stuff to handle, and she'd rolled her eyes and said, you could do your little emails later. That was becoming a theme, if I'm being honest. I'm not unemployed. I'm not even close. I don't clock in an office, but I work more hours than most of the people who love to joke about my laptop job. I manage properties, commercial and residential, through an LLC I co-own with my dad's longtime business partner. I handle financing, lease negotiations, vendor contracts, insurance renewals, capital improvements, tenant complaints, taxes, the boring stuff that keeps buildings standing and cash flowing. It's not glamorous. It's also not nothing. And yes, one of the properties we own is the building Tessa's studio is in. It's not like I walk around with a monocle saying, I own this place. We have a property management company as the front-facing contact. Tenants don't deal with me personally unless something is on fire or someone's trying to break a lease. But I know that building intimately. The cracked tile near the east stairwell, the HVAC that whines in the summer, the way the back alley floods when it rains hard. I know what the rent is for each unit, how long the leases run, which tenants pay early and which ones get polite reminders and then less polite reminders. Tessa's unit? New lease. Slightly negotiated rate because she was a startup. Personal guarantee. Tight margins. And my wife, my own wife, was standing in a lobby of that building telling her sister and a group of strangers that I was basically unemployed. Mara pulled me away from the little circle, guiding me toward the back where Tessa had set up a refreshments table with fruit skewers and tiny pastries. Her hand stayed on my arm, smiling at people as she walked, like she was steering a shopping cart. When we got out of earshot, she dropped the smile instantly and hissed, "What is that face?" "What face?" My voice came out low and rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. "Your face," she said, eyes sharp. "You look like you're about to start something." I laughed once, quietly, because the absurdity of her policing my expression after what she'd just said almost made me dizzy. "You just told your sister I'm basically unemployed." Maha blinked fast. "Oh my God, I didn't mean it like that." "What did you mean it?" I asked, keeping my voice steady because I could feel it wanting to rise. She made a little frustrated sound. "You know what I mean? Like, you don't have a normal job. You don't go to an office." Tessa's stressed about money, and I was trying to relate by throwing me under the bus. I said. Mara's eyes flicked toward the crowd, like she was checking if anyone was listening. "Can you not do this here?" My coffee had gone lukewarm, and I realized my hand was shaking slightly, so I set it down on the table before I spilled it. "So you're saying you didn't say it?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then said I said something, but it was a joke. "It didn't sound like a joke," I said. "It sounded like you believe it." Mara's expression tightened. "You're being sensitive." There it was. The phrase that always turns my stomach, because it's a way of saying my reaction is the problem, not her words. I took a breath through my nose and tried to keep this from becoming a scene. "Let's talk about this later," I said. Mara's shoulders relaxed like she'd won. "Thank you," she said brightly. Then she turned and rejoined her sister with the same easy smile like she hadn't just carved a little notch into my ribs. For the next hour, I floated through the event like a ghost. People made small talk at me without really looking at me. Tessa introduced me to someone as Mara's husband, like that was my job title. One of her friends asked what I did, and before I could answer, Mara laughed and said, "He's in real estate-ish," in this dismissive sing-song tone, like I collected novelty stamps. When I finally said, calmly, "I manage commercial properties," Tessa said, "Like landlord stuff?" with her nose wrinkled, as if I confessed to a weird hobby. Then she launched into a rant about how their landlord was so greedy and probably doesn't even work, and I stood there while she described me without knowing it. Mara nodded along sympathetically, hand on Tessa's shoulder, and I watched my wife's face. How comfortable she looked in that version of reality where I was an underachieving burden and she was the hard-working hero. There was a moment near the end when Tessa was giving a little thank you speech. Everyone held champagne flutes. Mara leaned toward Tessa and whispered something that made them both laugh. I didn't ask what it was. I didn't want to know. In the car on the way home, Mara hummed along with the radio like it was a normal evening. I drove with both hands on the wheel, knuckles tight, watching the reflections of streetlights slide across the windshield. Finally, I said, "Do you actually think I'm unemployed?" Mara sighed dramatically and stared out her window. "I think you're being dramatic." "That's not an answer," I said. She turned toward me, exasperated. "You know what I mean. You work. I know you work. But you also have a lot of free time. You're home during the day. You can take calls whenever. You don't understand what it's like to be on your feet all day and come home exhausted." I almost swerved, not because of anger, but because of the sheer unfairness. "I'm on my feet plenty," I said. "I was at that building last week because the upstairs tenant flooded their bathroom and it leaked into the unit below. I spent 6 hours coordinating plumbers and insurance and angry people. You didn't even know that happened." Mara shrugged. "Because you didn't tell me. Because every time I talk about work you call it landlord stuff like it's not real," I said, and my voice cracked slightly on the last word. She went quiet for a second, then said, "I didn't realize you cared so much what people think." That made something in me go still. "It's not people. It's you," I said. "I care what you think." She pressed her lips together. "Okay, well, I'm sorry if you felt embarrassed." "If," I repeated, and I hated how calm my voice got. "You don't think what you said was embarrassing?" Mara's jaw set. I was supporting my sister. She's stressed. She's trying to make rent and build a business. Ich glänzte her. "Is she behind?" Mara blinked. "What? Is Tessa behind on rent?" I asked again, slower. Mara's eyes widened a fraction. She looked away. Why would you ask that? Because I know the ledger. Because I've seen the email from property management about the wellness tenant asking for an extension. Because I didn't put two and two together until right now, when my wife started playing the I'm carrying everything violin in public. Mara, I said, keeping my eyes on the road. Is she behind? She didn't answer right away, which was an answer on its own. Then she said, she's just having a slow start, and her landlord is being difficult. My stomach tightened. Her landlord is a management company that has given her 2 extensions in the last month. Mara whipped her head toward me. How would you know that? I didn't say anything for a moment. My hands on the wheel felt too steady compared to the way my chest was thumping. Because I know, I said. Mara stared at me, suspicion and confusion mixing on her face. What are you talking about? I pulled into our driveway and put the car in park, but I didn't turn it off yet. The engine's low rumble filled the space between us. I co-own the building, I said. Mara laughed, one quick burst, like I'd said I was secretly a spy. No, you don't. I turned and looked at her. Yes, I do. Her smile faltered. You're joking. I'm not joking, I said. The building Tessa's studio is in. I own part of it. I've owned part of it for years. Mara's face shifted through several emotions so fast I could barely track them. Confusion, disbelief, then something sharp. Anger, maybe. Like she thought she'd been tricked. Why didn't you tell me? I have told you, I said honestly. More than once. You never listened. You weren't interested. That's not true, she snapped. Mara, I said, voice quiet. You call my little laptop thing. Her nostrils flared. So you're saying you let my sister struggle in your building and didn't do anything? There it was. The pivot. Not, I'm sorry I humiliated you. Not, I didn't realize. Straight to accusing me of wrongdoing, because that's easier than sitting in the discomfort of what she did. I didn't let her struggle, I said. She signed a lease. I'm not her personal bank, and I'm not even the property manager. But you could fix it. Mara cut in, voice rising. You can make it easier for her. I'm not going to interfere with a lease because my wife's sister is the tenant, I said. That's not how it works. And you know what? The fact that you're jumping to that tells me you didn't just accidentally call me unemployed. You were setting up a story. Mara's eyes flashed. What story? A story where I'm useless, I said. So when you ask me to help her financially, or when she asks you, it's not embarrassing. It's like, I owe it, because I'm basically unemployed and you're carrying everything. Mara opened her mouth, then shut it. For a second, she looked genuinely shaken. Then she said, very quietly, I was trying to protect us. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Protect us from what? Mara swallowed. From people thinking you're better than them. Isterte her, stunned. What? She looked down at her hands. My family already thinks you're quiet. Like you judge them. They don't understand what you do. And it makes them insecure. I was trying to make it relatable. Like you're not some big rich guy. You're just what? I asked, and my voice got sharp before I could stop it. Mara's cheeks flushed. Just normal. I laughed, but it wasn't humor. You think calling me basically unemployed makes me normal? She looked up, eyes shiny now, and for the first time that night, I saw something like fear. You don't get it, she whispered. Tessa is drowning. My mom keeps asking me for help. They think because you have property, we're rolling in money. They don't see you working. They just see potential. And instead of telling them the truth, that we have boundaries, you made me the joke, I said. Mara flinched like I'd slapped her. We went inside, and the argument continued in the kitchen, not screaming, but that tight, toxic kind of talking where every sentence feels like it has teeth. Mara insisted she was just venting. I kept coming back to the fact that she did it in public, with a smile, like it was entertainment. She kept saying, wasn't that serious? And I kept saying, it was serious to me. At one point, she snapped, so what? You wanted me to brag about you? You wanted to tell everyone you own the building and make my sister feel small? No, I said, exhausted. I wanted you to respect me. We went to bed angry. Mara faced the wall. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing change like she was pretending to be asleep. The next morning, I had an email from our property manager flagged urgent. Tenant in Unit 2B, Wellness Boutique, requesting third extension. Claims family hardship. Threatening to go public about greedy landlord. My stomach dropped, not because of the money, but because I could suddenly see the whole shape of it. The public narrative, the villain, the martyr, the unemployed husband who wouldn't help. It was all convenient. When Mara came into the kitchen, hair messy, wearing one of my old t-shirts, I held my phone up and asked, "Did you tell Tessa I own the building?" Her face went blank. Too blank. No. So why is she threatening to go public about the landlord? I asked. Why would she think that's a lever? Mara's eyes flicked away. She's stressed. Mara, I said, voice low, "Did you tell her?" She hesitated. Then she said, "I said you're involved." A hot wave of anger moved through me, slow and heavy. Involve how? Mara's voice went defensive. I didn't give details. I just said you have connections, and maybe you could talk to someone. Talk to someone, I repeated. You mean me? She lifted her chin. She's my sister, and I'm your husband, I said. But last night, in front of everyone, you made me sound like I'm nothing. And now you're trying to use the thing you mocked to solve a problem you helped create. Mara's eyes filled. So what? You're going to punish her? Evict her? No, I said, and it surprised me how quickly I answered. I'm not going to do that. I'm also not going to bend the lease, because you want to keep your family happy. Mara's voice wobbled. If she loses her business. I don't want her to lose her business, I said. But she can't threaten my company and expect favors. Mara wiped at her cheek angrily. Your company. There it is. That's when I realized we weren't arguing about rent. We were arguing about power. Who has it? Who resents it? Who feels small next to it? And somehow, Mara had decided the solution was to shrink me in public so she could feel safer inside her family. That weekend, we went to dinner at her mom's house. Mara insisted we clear the air. I didn't want to go, but I also didn't want our marriage to become a silent war. I told myself we could handle it like adults. Tessa was there, sitting at the table with her phone face down like she'd been practicing restraint. She barely looked at me. Mara's mom served food and chatted like everything was fine, but the vibe was wrong, tight staged. Halfway through dinner, Tessa finally said, "So, I heard you're like a part owner of our building." Mara shot me a warning look across the table. I put my fork down. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. "Yes," I said, "I am." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "And you didn't tell us." "I didn't think it was relevant," I said. "You deal with property management, not me." Tessa scoffed. "So you can just hide behind a company name while my rent keeps going up." "It hasn't gone up," I said, "because facts matter even when people want drama. It's the same rent you signed for." Mara's mom jumped in, tone sharp. "She's trying to build something. Don't be cold." I looked at Mara, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. I took a breath and said, "I'm not cold. But I'm also not going to pretend I don't work because it's easier for you to digest. And I'm not going to accept being called basically unemployed so that someone feels better about asking for money." Mara's mom blinked. "Who called you that?" Silence. The kind where you can hear chewing stop. Tessa looked at Mara. "You told me he was basically unemployed," she said, confusion and irritation mixing. "You literally said he didn't have a real job." Mara's face went red. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam a hand on the table. I just said calmly, "That's the problem. You didn't mean it, but you said it. And you said it in public. In your sister's business. In front of her clients." Tessa's mouth opened like she wanted to say something mean, then she stopped. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. Not with me, but with the situation. Like she realized she'd been handed a script, and she performed it without checking if it was true. Mara's mom set her fork down hard. "So what now?" she demanded. "Are you holding this over us?" "No," I said. "I'm holding a boundary." Tessa crossed her arms. "So you're not helping?" "I'm not changing the lease," I said. "If you need business advice or budgeting help, I'll help you. If you want to talk to the property manager like any other tenant, do that. But threats and guilt? No." Mara let out a small, broken sound like she was embarrassed and furious and scared all at once. You're making us look terrible. I looked at her, and I felt something settle in me. Sadness, mostly. Mara, I said quietly, you made me look terrible. We left early. In the car, Mara cried, then got angry, then went quiet. At home, she said, I didn't know you'd do that. Do what? I asked. Stand up to them. She whispered, like that was the betrayal. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because I wanted drama, but because I couldn't lie next to someone who'd use humiliation as social currency. Over the next 2 weeks, a few things happened. Tessa stopped texting Mara hourly panic messages about rent. She started talking to the property manager like a grown adult, and, shockingly, when she wasn't playing the victim, solutions appeared. A payment plan, a smaller marketing push, cutting unnecessary expenses, real boring business stuff. Mara, on the other hand, spiraled. She kept saying, you don't understand my family, as if that excused how she'd talked about me. She asked if we could just move on. She wanted the discomfort to vanish without changing any of the behavior that caused it. And I realized something painful. Mara liked the version of our marriage where I was quiet and useful and slightly embarrassed. She liked being the spokesperson, the translator, the one who got to frame me however she wanted, depending on what the room needed. I told her we needed counseling. She said, so you're making this a whole thing. I said, yes, because I'm done pretending it isn't. We're in therapy now. It's not some magical fix. It's uncomfortable. Mara has to sit with the fact that she chose her family's approval over my dignity. I have to sit with the fact that I let her minimize my work and my contributions for longer than I should have, because it was easier than confronting it. Sometimes therapy goes well. Sometimes we leave in silence. Sometimes she apologizes in a way that feels real. Sometimes she backslides and says something like, you know what I meant, and I have to remind her again that meaning doesn't erase impact. Here's what I know for sure. I didn't win because I own a building. That's the part people latch onto because it feels like a punchline. The real gut punch was realizing my wife was willing to make me smaller to keep other people comfortable. And the real turning point wasn't watching her sister's face when she learned the truth. It was watching my wife's face when she realized I wasn't going to play along anymore. I still own that building. Tessa still works there. The lease is the lease. The rent is the rent. None of that is personal, even if they try to make it personal. But my marriage? That got very personal. And I'm still figuring out whether Mara can learn to respect me when respect costs her something.